The question that started everything, Dr. Sarah Chun wiped the sweat from her brow as she finished treating the last patient in the medical bay of Trade Station Harmony 7. The crystalline trader from Zirion Prime had suffered severe radiation burns during a cargo handling accident, and Sarah had spent the better part of 3 hours carefully neutralizing the toxic energy that had penetrated his mineral-based physiology. Her hands moved with practiced precision, applying the specialized healing compounds that would help his crystalline structure regenerate. Dr. Chun came a deep, rumbling voice from behind her. She turned to see Commander Zeth Kai of the Ceridian Defense Force standing in the doorway. His 7-foot frame was encased in the traditional battle armor of his people, thick metallic plates that could deflect plasma bolts and energy weapons. The armor's surface bore the scars of countless battles, each mark a testament to conflicts survived. "I must speak with you." Sarah nodded, pulling off her surgical gloves and tossing them into the disposal unit. "Of course, Commander. What can I do for you?" She was tired, having been on duty for nearly 18 hours straight, but her voice remained steady and professional. The human medical staff was known throughout the station for their dedication, often working shifts that would hospitalize other species. Zeth Kai's reptilian features showed uncertainty, an expression rarely seen on a Ceridian warrior. "I have been observing your medical practices, Doctor. Your species, your people work in conditions that would require our finest protective equipment, yet you wear nothing but thin fabric and some disposable coverings." Sarah glanced down at her standard medical uniform. A simple blue jumpsuit made of breathable synthetic material, designed more for comfort and mobility than protection. "What do you mean, Commander?" "Today alone, you have been exposed to Class 5 radiation, toxic atmospheric compounds, caustic biological fluids, and pathogenic organisms that could dissolve Ceridian armor plating." Zeth Kai's voice carried a note of genuine confusion. "Yet you show no signs of distress, no protective protocols, no concern for your own safety. How is this possible?" Before Sarah could answer, Ambassador Kalin of the Hive Collective approached, her insectoid form clicking softly as she walked. The Collective's representative was encased in her species' traditional bioarmor, a living shell that could adapt to environmental threats in real time. "Dr. Chun, I too have wondered about this anomaly. My observations indicate that humans consistently operate in environments that would require significant protective measures for other species." Sarah found herself surrounded by curious aliens, each representing species that had evolved sophisticated external protection systems. The Ceridians had their battle armor, the Hive Collective had their bioshells, the Iron Shell Coalition had their mechanical exoskeletons, and the Zirian Crystallines had their energy barriers. Yet here she stood, unprotected by their standards, having just completed medical procedures that would have challenged their most advanced protective equipment. "You want to know why we don't need armor?" Sarah asked, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. The question seemed almost amusing to her, though she couldn't quite explain why. "It is a matter of great interest to many species," Kalin confirmed. "Human capabilities appear to exceed biological parameters observed in other sentient races. The Collective's analysis suggests anomalous physiological traits." Sarah's smile widened. She walked over to her medical workstation and pulled up a holographic display showing comparative biological data from various species. "Let me ask you something first, Commander Zeth Kai. What do you know about human evolution?" The Ceridian warrior's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Your species evolved on a world with moderate environmental challenges. No natural armor plating, no energy-based defenses, no toxic capabilities. By all accounts, humans should be among the more fragile species in the galaxy." "That's where you're wrong," Sarah said, her voice taking on the tone of a teacher addressing students. "Earth wasn't moderate at all. Our planet was a death trap that tried to kill us in every way imaginable." She manipulated the holographic display, showing images of Earth's various environments. Extreme temperatures, natural disasters, predators, diseases, radiation from space, toxic plants, venomous creatures, and countless other threats. Ambassador Quillen's compound eyes focused intently on the display. Yet humans survived and eventually achieved spaceflight. How? Because we became something different, Sarah explained. We didn't evolve external armor because we didn't need it. We evolved something much better. We became the armor ourselves. She rolled up her sleeves, exposing her arms to the assembled aliens. What you see as fragile skin is actually a highly sophisticated protective barrier. It's self-repairing, adaptive, and incredibly resilient. Captain Torres, Sarah's colleague and the station's human security chief, entered the medical bay at that moment. He was a broad-shouldered man with graying hair and the weathered look of someone who had seen combat across multiple systems. "Doctor, we've got another situation developing. The Netherian delegation is requesting medical assistance for environmental poisoning." "From what?" Sarah asked, already moving toward her equipment cabinet. The air recycling system in their quarters malfunctioned. They were exposed to a nitrogen-oxygen mixture for about 10 minutes before they realized something was wrong. Torres paused, noticing the gathered aliens. "Am I interrupting something?" Commander Zethkai stepped forward. "Captain Torres, we were discussing human physiological capabilities. How is it possible that the atmosphere toxic to Netherians is the natural breathing mixture for humans?" Torres chuckled, a sound that made several of the assembled aliens shift uncomfortably. "Commander, you're thinking about this backwards. It's not that we can breathe their poison, they can't handle what we call air. Most species in the galaxy have evolved to process very specific atmospheric compositions. Humans evolved to handle variety." Sarah was already preparing the neutralization treatments for the Netherian delegation. "Our atmospheric tolerance is just one example, Captain. These species want to know why we don't wear protective equipment." Torres nodded, understanding immediately. They want to know about human armor. He looked at the assembled aliens with an expression that was part amusement, part sympathy. "Have you told them about our immune system yet, Doc?" "I was getting to that," Sarah replied, loading her medical kit with various treatments. "Commander Zethkai, what happens when a foreign pathogen enters a Soridian system? We rely on our armor's filtration systems and medical intervention," the commander replied. "Direct exposure to unknown biological agents is typically fatal within hours." "Watch this," Sarah said. She took a sample vial containing what appeared to be a writhing, luminescent liquid. "This is a culture of Andromedan flu virus. It's lethal to most carbon-based life forms, causes complete system shutdown within 6 hours of exposure." Without hesitation, she opened the vial and placed a single drop on her exposed finger. The reaction from the assembled aliens was immediate. Quillen's bio-armor began shifting into defensive mode. Zethkai's hand moved instinctively toward his weapon, and several other observers backed away in alarm. "Dr. Chun!" Commander Zethkai's voice was sharp with concern. "You must seek immediate medical attention." Sarah simply stood there, watching her finger with mild interest. "In about 30 seconds, you'll see why humans don't need external immune support systems." She continued preparing her medical equipment with her other hand, seemingly unconcerned about the potentially fatal pathogen she had just deliberately exposed herself to. 28 seconds later, the area around the virus drop began to show signs of inflammation, redness, slight swelling, and increased temperature. But instead of spreading, the reaction remained localized. Within another minute, the inflammation began to recede. "What just happened?" Ambassador Kalin asked, her bio-armor still partially defensive. "My immune system happened," Sarah explained calmly. "Human immune systems are adaptive warfare platforms. When we encounter a new threat, our bodies don't just defend against it, they learn from it, adapt to it, and develop permanent countermeasures." She wiped her finger clean with a sterilization pad. "I'm now immune to Andromedan flu, and if I were to have children, they would inherit that immunity." Captain Torres nodded approvingly. "Doctor, show them the pain tolerance demonstration while we're at it." Sarah's eyes lit up with an almost mischievous gleam. "Oh, that's a good one. Commander Zethkai, what's the standard pain threshold for Soridian warriors?" "Our neural inhibitors prevent us from experiencing more than level 7 pain responses," the commander replied proudly. Beyond that point, we would lose consciousness to prevent permanent psychological damage. Interesting, Sarah mused. She walked to her medical cabinet and retrieved a nerve stimulator, a device typically used for testing reflexes and neural responses. This device can generate controlled pain stimuli up to level 15, well beyond what any species should be able to tolerate consciously. She attached the neural probes to her arm and looked at the assembled aliens. Human pain tolerance isn't about not feeling pain. We feel it just as acutely as any other species. The difference is what we do with that. Information. She activated the device. The readings immediately spiked to level 8, then 9, then 10. Sarah's expression didn't change. She continued adjusting her medical equipment with steady hands while the device climbed to level 12, then 13. "This is impossible," Colin whispered. "The readings indicate pain levels that should cause immediate system shutdown." At level 14, Sarah finally showed a reaction. She grimaced slightly and took a slow, controlled breath. "Pain is just information," she explained, her voice still steady despite the neural stimulator reading dangerous levels. "It tells us something is wrong, but it doesn't control us. Humans learned long ago that survival sometimes requires working through pain that would incapacitate other species." She deactivated the device and removed the probes, showing no lasting effects from the experience. When a human parent sees their child in danger, they don't stop because something hurts. When a human soldier's comrades are threatened, pain becomes irrelevant. When a human doctor has patients to save, discomfort is just background noise. Commander Zethkai's armor sensors had been recording the entire demonstration. "Doctor, my equipment indicates that your stress hormones actually decreased during the high-pain stimulation. How is this possible?" "Because I was in control," Sarah replied simply. "Fear comes from uncertainty, from feeling helpless. Pain becomes a problem when you can't do anything about it. But when you understand pain, when you can work with it instead of against it, it becomes just another tool for survival." Captain Torres stepped forward. "She's not unusual, Commander. Every human on this station could do what Dr. Chun just demonstrated. We train our children to understand pain, to work through discomfort, to push beyond what seems possible when the situation requires it." "But why?" Ambassador Colin asked. "Why evolve such capabilities? What environmental pressures could have created these adaptations?" Sarah's expression became more serious. "Earth didn't give us easy options, Ambassador. We couldn't grow thicker skin like some species. We couldn't develop energy shields like others. We couldn't hibernate through dangerous periods or fly away from threats. We had to become adaptable, resilient, and creative. We had to become the kind of species that could survive anything our planet threw at us." She gestured toward the medical bay's viewing port, which showed the vast expanse of space beyond the station. "Every other species I've encountered evolved to handle specific environmental challenges. Sauridians developed armor for their volcanic world. The Hive Collective developed bioshells for their caustic atmosphere. The Iron Shell Coalition built mechanical enhancement to survive their high-gravity planets." "And humans?" Commander Zethkai prompted. "Humans evolved to handle change itself," Sarah replied. "We became a species that could adapt to any environment, survive any threat, overcome any challenge, not by developing specific tools or armor, but by becoming infinitely flexible, endlessly creative, and fundamentally unbreakable." The medical bay's emergency alert suddenly activated, its red lights flashing as the station's automated systems announced a critical situation. Captain Torres immediately accessed his communication device. "Torres here. What's the situation?" "Captain, we have multiple hull breaches in Section 7. Toxic atmospheric leak, radiation exposure, and structural collapse. We need immediate response teams, but the environment is beyond safe parameters for most species." Torres looked at Sarah, who was already grabbing her emergency medical kit. "Doctor, that area will require full environmental suits for most of the response team. Estimated prep time is 15 minutes. Sarah was already heading toward the door. "I'll be there in 2 minutes." She paused and looked back at the assembled aliens. Commander Zeth Kai, Ambassador Kalin, would you like to see human armor in action? Without waiting for an answer, she ran from the medical bay, leaving behind a group of aliens who were beginning to understand that they had severely underestimated the species they shared the galaxy with. What they had seen so far was just the beginning of their education about human capabilities. Commander Zeth Kai looked at Captain Torres. She is going into a contaminated zone. Without protection? Torres smiled grimly. Commander, Dr. Chun isn't going in unprotected. She's going in wearing the most advanced survival system in the known galaxy, a human body guided by a human mind. And if I know Sarah, she's about to show your people why humans never needed to evolve external armor. The group of aliens followed Torres toward Section 7, each of them beginning to suspect that their understanding of human capabilities was about to be fundamentally challenged. The demonstration of human resilience Section 7 of Trade Station Harmony 7 looked like a scene from a nightmare. The hull breach had created a violent decompression that twisted metal supports into abstract sculptures of destruction. Toxic gases from the station's industrial sector mixed with radiation leaking from damaged power conduits, creating an atmosphere that readings showed as immediately lethal to most known species. Emergency containment fields flickered intermittently, barely maintaining structural integrity in the affected areas. Commander Zeth Kai stood at the emergency checkpoint, his armor sensors screaming warnings about environmental hazards. My equipment indicates that exposure to this environment for more than 30 seconds would be fatal even with full Ceridian battle armor, he reported to Captain Torres. Ambassador Quillen's bio-armor had shifted into its maximum protective configuration, creating an almost impenetrable shell around her insectoid form. The collective's biological analysis confirms extreme toxicity levels. Our most advanced adaptive defenses estimate survival time at less than 2 minutes in full protective mode. Captain Torres nodded grimly as he monitored the situation through his handheld scanner. We've got 17 beings trapped in there, a mixed delegation that was touring the industrial facilities when a cascade failure occurred. Most species' environmental suits will take at least 20 minutes to configure for these specific hazards. 20 minutes. A new voice joined the conversation. General Vorthack of the Iron Shell Coalition approached, his massive mechanical exoskeleton clanking with each step. Captain Torres, my readings suggest that even with our most advanced life support systems, my people would require 45 minutes of preparation time to survive in that environment. How do you propose to reach the survivors? Before Torres could answer, Dr. Sarah Chen's voice crackled through the emergency communication system. Torres, I've reached the first group of survivors. 3 Netherians and 2 crystallants, all suffering from severe atmospheric poisoning. I'm beginning immediate treatment. The assembled aliens stared at Torres in shock. She is already inside? Commander Zeth Kai's voice carried a note of disbelief. Without environmental protection? Torres checked his chronometer. She's been in there for 4 minutes now. He activated his communicator. Sarah, status report. The Netherians are responding well to the neutralization treatments. The crystallants have some radiation damage to their outer matrix, but nothing that can't be repaired. I'm moving to the secondary collapse area where the larger group is trapped. Dr. Zenera, a crystalline physicist who had been observing the situation, approached with her energy barrier flickering around her translucent form. Captain Torres, this is theoretically impossible. The atmospheric composition in that section includes compounds that should dissolve human respiratory tissue within minutes. Doctor, Torres replied with a slight smile, you're still thinking about humans like we're a normal species. Watch your scanner readings over the next few minutes. Sarah's about to give you a demonstration in human adaptability. Meanwhile, inside the contaminated zone, Sarah was experiencing what humans had learned to call controlled adaptation. Her body was automatically adjusting to the hostile environment in ways that would have seemed impossible to outside observers. Her respiratory system had shifted to a more efficient oxygen extraction mode, processing the minimal breathable components in the toxic atmosphere while her enhanced immune system neutralized harmful compounds before they could cause permanent damage. The radiation levels that were beyond safe parameters for most species were being managed by her body's natural repair mechanisms, which had evolved to handle the various radiation sources that Earth's environment had always presented. Her skin had developed a slight, luminescent quality as cellular defenses activated, giving her an almost ethereal appearance in the contaminated atmosphere. Sarah to Torres, her voice came through the communicator again. I found the main group, 12 survivors total, but we have a problem. They're trapped behind a collapsed support beam that's been magnetized by the electrical discharge. It's too heavy for me to move alone, and the magnetic field is interfering with their species' neural functions. General Vorthak leaned toward his communicator. Dr. Chun, my exoskeleton could provide the necessary lifting power, but I require 37 minutes to configure for environmental entry. That's too long, Sarah replied. Several of these survivors won't last another 10 minutes in this atmosphere. I need to find another solution. Torres looked at the assembled aliens. Here's where you'll see something interesting about humans. Watch how Sarah approaches an impossible problem. Engineer Marcus Webb, who had been working on environmental containment procedures nearby, jogged up to the group. He was a tall, lean human with the practical demeanor of someone who spent his life solving mechanical problems. Captain, I've been monitoring Dr. Chen's situation. The magnetized beam is the primary structural support for that entire section. Even if we could lift it, removing it would cause a secondary collapse. Marcus, Torres said into his communicator, Sarah, are you getting this? Copy, Sarah's voice replied. Marcus, what's the power source for the magnetization? Emergency power grid, rerouted through the damaged conduits. It's actually maintaining structural integrity by holding several elements in place, but it's also creating the electromagnetic interference that's affecting the survivors. There was a moment of silence before Sarah spoke again. I need you to walk me through the power grid layout for this section. I have an idea. Dr. Zanera's energy field flickered with confusion. What could a medical officer possibly do with power grid information in a situation like this? Marcus was already pulling up schematic displays on his portable workstation. Sarah, you're looking at a distributed network with 7 primary nodes. The magnetization is being fed by nodes 3, 5, and 7. If I selectively disable nodes 3 and 7, what happens to structural integrity? Sarah asked. Calculating. Marcus worked rapidly through the engineering mathematics. You'd reduce the magnetic field by 67% while maintaining sufficient electromagnetic support to prevent collapse. But Sarah, those nodes are in separate locations, and you'd need to modify the power flow manually. How manually? Sarah's voice carried a note of interest rather than concern. You'd need to physically access the power conduits and reroute the energy flow. But the conduits are carrying approximately 3 times the safe electrical load for human contact. Commander Zethkai's armor sensors were monitoring the communication exchange. Dr. Chun, direct contact with those conduits would deliver electrical discharge sufficient to stop a Ceridian heart instantly. Even our battle armor cannot protect against that level of electrical current. Understood, Commander, Sarah replied calmly. Marcus, guide me to the first node. What happened next challenged every assumption the alien observers had about biological limitations. Sarah approached the first power node, which was crackling with visible electrical discharge. Instead of attempting to avoid the electrical field, she placed her hands directly on the conduit. The electrical current that should have killed her instantly was absorbed and redirected by her body's natural bioelectrical systems. Humans had evolved sophisticated electrical management capabilities. Their nervous systems were essentially biological electrical networks that could adapt to external electrical sources under extreme circumstances. Impossible, General Vorthak's mechanical voice processors struggled to interpret what his sensors were recording. She is conducting electrical current through her body without apparent harm. Not conducting, Dr. Zanera corrected, her physicists mind analyzing the readings. She is somehow processing and redirecting the electrical energy. Her bioelectrical field is actually stabilizing and controlling the power flow. Sarah's voice came through the communicator with a note of concentration. Marcus, I'm rerouting power from node 3 through my own bioelectrical system. The current is significant but manageable. Guide me through the modification sequence. For the next several minutes, the assembled aliens watched in amazement as a human medical officer performed complex electrical engineering while serving as a living component in a high-voltage power grid. Sarah's body had become a biological transformer, processing dangerous electrical energy and directing it safely around the trapped survivors. Node 3 is modified, Sarah reported, moving to Node 7. The electromagnetic interference around the survivors should be decreasing. Ambassador Quillen's bioarmor was recording detailed biological data on human capabilities. The collective's analysis indicates that Dr. Chen's body is operating outside established biological parameters. Her electrical tolerance alone exceeds our most sophisticated technological defenses. That's because you're measuring her against your definition of biology, Captain Torres explained. Humans evolved in an environment where electrical storms were common, where lightning strikes were survivable if you knew how to work with the energy instead of against it. Sarah isn't exceeding biological limits. She's demonstrating biological capabilities that your species never needed to develop. Engineer Webb was providing Sarah with precise technical guidance as she approached the second power node. Sarah, this one is more complex. You'll need to create a variable resistance pathway to maintain power flow to the essential systems while reducing the magnetic field strength. Variable resistance, Sarah mused. So, I need to become a living resistor with adjustable conductivity. Exactly. Can you do that? Let me find out, Sarah replied. What followed was a demonstration of human biological adaptability that left the alien observers speechless. Sarah's body actually changed its electrical conductivity in real time, her skin developing different resistance levels in different areas. She became a biological circuit component, precisely controlling electrical flow through conscious manipulation of her bioelectrical systems. Node 7 is modified, Sarah announced after several minutes of intense concentration. Electromagnetic interference has dropped to acceptable levels. I can see the survivors moving, they're regaining function. Commander Zeth Kai was staring at his sensor readings in disbelief. Captain Torres, my equipment indicates that Dr. Chun just performed electrical engineering that would challenge our most advanced technological systems. She essentially became a piece of electrical equipment. She became what she needed to become. Torres corrected. That's what humans do. We adapt to solve problems, even if the adaptation seems impossible by normal standards. Sarah's next communication carried a note of satisfaction. Torres, all survivors are conscious and mobile. I'm administering final medical treatments now. The crystallines will need some matrix repair work, but everyone will recover fully. Outstanding work, Sarah. What's your status? I'm invigorated, actually, Sarah replied, and there was surprise in her voice. The electrical current seems to have enhanced my cellular function. I'm processing the toxic atmosphere more efficiently now, and my energy levels are higher than when I started. Dr. Zenera's energy field pulsed with astonishment. She is describing electrical enhancement of biological function. This should be impossible. Dr. Engineer Webb interjected. Humans evolved to use everything as a tool, even environmental hazards. Sarah didn't just survive that electrical exposure. She used it to improve her performance. 20 minutes later, Sarah emerged from Section 7, leading a group of 17 grateful survivors. She showed no signs of fatigue, radiation sickness, atmospheric poisoning, or electrical trauma. If anything, she appeared more energetic than when she had entered the contaminated zone. The assembled aliens stared at her in silence as she efficiently organized medical care for the survivors, coordinating treatment protocols with the same calm professionalism she had shown throughout the crisis. Finally, General Vorthak spoke. Dr. Chun, My sensors recorded your activities inside the contaminated zone. According to every biological model in our databases, you should not be alive. Sarah looked up from treating an Etherian survivor, her expression mildly curious. Why not, General? The atmospheric toxicity, the radiation exposure, the electrical current, the physical stress, any one of those factors should have been fatal. The combination should have been impossible to survive. Sarah finished applying a healing compound to her patient and stood up, brushing dust from her uniform. General, you're still thinking about survival as avoiding threats. Humans don't avoid threats. We adapt to them, use them, and turn them into advantages. She gestured toward the contaminated section. That wasn't the hostile environment to me. That was a complex system that needed to be understood and worked with. The toxins became information about what needed to be neutralized. The radiation became energy that my cells could process and use. The electrical current became a tool for manipulating the power grid. Commander Zethkai approached slowly, his armor still registering dangerous levels of residual contamination from the area Sarah had just exited. You speak of these hazards as if they were resources rather than threats. Because that's what they are, Sarah replied simply. Every challenge is just another form of information, another type of energy, another tool to be used. Humans learned long ago that the difference between a threat and a resource is just a matter of perspective and capability. Ambassador Quillen's bio-armor had been analyzing Sarah's physiology throughout the rescue operation. Dr. Chun, the collective's readings indicate that your body has been permanently enhanced by this experience. Your cellular efficiency has increased, your immune system has been strengthened, and your bioelectrical capacity has expanded. Sarah nodded thoughtfully. That happens sometimes. Humans call it adaptation under pressure. When we encounter new challenges, our bodies don't just survive them. We learn from them and become better equipped to handle similar situations in the future. Engineer Webb smiled proudly. Sarah, that was some of the finest electrical work I've ever seen. You essentially became a living piece of engineering equipment. Thanks, Marcus. Although I have to admit, I'm not entirely sure how I did it. When I needed to become a variable resistor, my body just figured it out. Dr. Zanera floated closer, her energy field flickering with scientific curiosity. You performed conscious control of bioelectrical systems that our most advanced medical technology cannot fully explain. How is this possible? Sarah considered the question seriously. Doctor, I think you're still approaching this as if humans are like other species, just with different capabilities, but we're not. We're something entirely different. We're a species that evolved to become whatever the situation requires. She looked around at the assembled aliens, each representative of species that had developed sophisticated external technologies and protections. You've all evolved specific solutions to specific problems. Armor for combat, bioshells for hostile environments, mechanical enhancement for physical limitations, energy barriers for protection. And humans. General Vorthak prompted. Humans evolved to be the solution itself, Sarah replied. We became a species that could consciously direct our own adaptation. That could become whatever we needed to be in the moment we needed to be it. Captain Torres stepped forward. What Dr. Chin accomplished today isn't unusual by human standards. Every human on the station could have done something similar, adapted to whatever challenges they encountered. But how? Commander Zethkai asked desperately, how does a species develop such capabilities? Sarah's expression became thoughtful. Because we had to, Commander. Earth gave us a choice, adapt or die. Not adapt once and survive forever, but adapt constantly, continuously, creatively. Every generation faced new challenges, new threats, new environments. She gestured toward the damaged section. So, we became a species that could meet any challenge, handle any environment, solve any problem. We became living armor, living tools, living solutions to whatever the universe could throw at us. The group of aliens stood in contemplative silence, beginning to understand that they had encountered something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that had evolved beyond the need for external enhancement because they had become enhancement itself. And this, they were beginning to realize, was still just the beginning of understanding what humans were truly capable of. The truth behind human nature, the Emergency Council Chamber of Trade Station Harmony, 7 had never hosted a gathering quite like this one. Representatives from 12 major galactic civilizations sat around the curved conference table, their various forms of protective equipment creating a technological showcase of defensive capabilities. Ceridian battle armor gleamed under the chamber's lights. Hive collective bioshells pulsed with adaptive responses, Iron Shell Coalition exoskeletons hummed with mechanical precision, and energy barriers from a dozen species created a kaleidoscope of defensive technologies. At the center of it all sat Dr. Sarah Chen, wearing nothing but her standard medical uniform, looking remarkably relaxed for someone who had just accomplished what most species would consider impossible. Admiral Kesthor, the ancient leader of the Titan Guard Coalition, spoke first. His voice carried the weight of centuries, filtered through the crystalline sound projectors of his environmental suit. Dr. Chun, what we witness today challenges fundamental assumptions about biological limitations. The Galactic Council requires an explanation. Sarah looked around the table at the assembled representatives, noting how each species had developed increasingly sophisticated external enhancements over their evolutionary history. Admiral, what exactly would you like me to explain? How a single unprotected human accomplished what would have required coordinated teams of our most advanced specialists, Commander Zeth Kai interjected. Your actions today exceeded the capabilities of our combined technologies. Ambassador Quillen's bio-armor shifted into its analytical configuration as she spoke. The collective has completed its assessment of human physiological data gathered during the crisis. Dr. Chun, your species exhibits capabilities that appear to violate established biological principles. Dr. Zenera projected holographic displays of energy readings around the table. The electrical manipulation alone defies our understanding of bioelectrical systems. You essentially became a living technological component. Sarah stood up and walked to the chamber's central holographic projector. May I show you something? Without waiting for permission, she activated the system and called up a star chart showing Earth's location in the galaxy. Everyone here represents a species that evolved on worlds with specific challenges. She began manipulating the display to show various homeworlds. Ceridians evolved on a high-radiation world with frequent volcanic activity, so you developed thick armor plating and heat resistance. The Hive Collective evolved on a planet with caustic atmospheres and hostile biochemistry, so you developed adaptive bioshells. She continued highlighting different worlds. The Iron Shell Coalition evolved on a high-gravity world with crushing atmospheric pressure, leading to mechanical augmentation. The Xerian Crystallants evolved on an energy-rich world with constant electromagnetic storms, developing natural energy barriers. The hologram shifted to show Earth, rotating slowly in the display. Earth was different. Earth wasn't trying to kill us with one specific thing. Earth was trying to kill us with everything. Admiral Kesthor leaned forward in his environmental suit. Explain. Volcanic activity, ice ages, meteor impacts, massive storms, earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, droughts, forest fires, predators, diseases, poisonous plants, venomous animals, radiation from space, toxic gases, electrical storms, extreme temperatures, hostile terrain, and atmospheric changes that made each day a new survival challenge. Sarah's voice took on an almost poetic quality as she described her homeworld's hostility. She manipulated the hologram to show Earth's geological history. Most worlds settle into stable patterns. Earth never did. Every few thousand years, everything changed. The climate shifted, the continents moved, new predators evolved, new diseases emerged, new environmental challenges appeared. General Vorthak's mechanical voice processors hummed as he processed this information. A world in constant flux would prevent specialized evolutionary adaptations. Exactly, Sarah nodded. We couldn't evolve specific solutions because the problems kept changing. So, we evolved something else entirely. We evolved the ability to evolve consciously and rapidly. Dr. Zanera's energy field flickered with scientific interest. Conscious evolution is theoretically impossible. Evolution is a gradual process requiring multiple generations. Sarah's smile became almost predatory. Doctor, you're thinking about evolution the way your species experiences it. Humans don't evolve like other species. We evolve the ability to direct our own adaptation in real time. She walked back to the table and sat down, but her posture had changed. Where before she had seemed relaxed and friendly, now there was something more primal in her bearing. What you witnessed today wasn't me exceeding my biological capabilities. It was me accessing capabilities that every human possesses. Captain Torres, who had been quietly observing from his position near the chamber's entrance, stepped forward. With the Council's permission, I'd like to demonstrate something that might help clarify Dr. Chen's explanation. Admiral Kesthor gestured his approval. Torres walked to the chamber's emergency equipment locker and retrieved a standard plasma cutter, a tool designed for cutting through reinforced hull plating. This device generates a focused plasma beam at approximately 15,000 degrees Celsius, Torres announced, activating the tool. The brilliant blue-white beam extended from the device, immediately raising the chamber's temperature. Several of the alien representatives shifted uncomfortably as their environmental systems registered the heat source. Commander Zeth Kai's armor automatically activated additional cooling protocols. Captain Torres, Ambassador Quillen's bioarmor was already adapting to the temperature change. What is your intention? Torres looked at Sarah, who nodded calmly. Without warning, Torres moved the plasma beam toward his own hand. The assembled aliens reacted with alarm, several standing or activating defensive systems. But instead of burning him, the plasma beam seemed to curve around Torres' flesh, creating a brilliant corona of energy that danced across his skin without causing apparent harm. Impossible, Dr. Zanera whispered. Plasma, at that temperature, should vaporize organic matter instantly. Torres deactivated the device and showed his completely unharmed hand to the assembly. Dr. Chen, would you explain what just happened? Sarah stood again, her demeanor now carrying an edge that made every alien in the room instinctively recognize her as a predator. Captain Torres just demonstrated conscious thermal adaptation. His body didn't resist the heat. It incorporated it, redirected it, used it. She began pacing around the table, and several representatives found themselves tracking her movement with the wariness of prey animals. Humans don't just adapt to survive threats. We adapt to use threats. Every challenge becomes a tool, every danger becomes a resource, every limitation becomes a capability. Engineer Marcus Webb entered the chamber at that moment, carrying a case of equipment. Sorry I'm late. I brought the items you requested, Dr. Chun. Sarah opened the case to reveal an assortment of tools and devices that seemed unrelated: a gravitational field generator, a molecular disruptor, a quantum resonance scanner, and several other pieces of advanced technology. Ladies, gentlemen, and various distinguished beings, Sarah announced, I'm going to show you something that should help you understand what you're really dealing with when you encounter humans. She picked up the gravitational field generator, a device designed to create localized gravity wells for cargo handling. In the hands of most species, it was a precision tool requiring careful calibration and protective protocols. Sarah activated it without any protective equipment, allowing the gravitational field to envelop her entire body. The field was strong enough to crush most organic matter, but instead of being harmed, Sarah began moving with enhanced coordination and strength. Gravitational fields aren't hazards to humans, she explained while casually lifting a conference table that should have required mechanical assistance. They're opportunities to enhance our physical capabilities. She set down the table and picked up the molecular disruptor, a device that could break down matter at the atomic level. Again, without protection, she activated it and directed its beam at her own arm. Instead of disintegrating, her arm seemed to become translucent, the molecular structure becoming visible and reorganizing itself in real time. Molecular disruption isn't destruction to humans, it's conscious control of our physical composition. The assembled aliens watched in stunned silence as Sarah demonstrated conscious control over fundamental forces that their most advanced technologies could barely manage safely. Admiral Kesthor finally found his voice. Dr. Chun, you are describing capabilities that exceed our definition of biological life. What you are demonstrating appears to be technological integration at a cellular level, not technological integration, Sarah corrected, deactivating the molecular disruptor and returning her arm to normal. Technological obsolescence. Humans evolved beyond the need for external technology because we became the technology. She picked up the quantum resonance scanner and activated it, but instead of using it to scan objects, she somehow synchronized her brainwaves with its quantum field. The device began displaying her thoughts as holographic projections around the chamber. Quantum consciousness isn't theoretical for humans, she said, as images of her memories and thought processes played in the air around them. We evolved the ability to directly interface with quantum fields to process information at the subatomic level to consciously control probability itself. Commander Zethkai's armor sensors were recording massive amounts of data, but his voice carried a note of fear. Dr. Chun, you are describing a species that has evolved beyond conventional physical limitations. What you are showing us suggests conscious control over fundamental forces of physics. Sarah's smile returned, but this time it held no warmth. Commander, you're beginning to understand. Humans didn't evolve to survive in one environment. We evolved to master any environment. We didn't develop tools to solve specific problems. We became living tools that could solve any problem. She gestured to Captain Torres and Engineer Webb. Every human you've met, every human in this galaxy, carries these same capabilities. We've been polite about it, working within your technological frameworks, using your tools, and following your protocols. But when necessary, the lights in the chamber dimmed as Sarah seemed to draw energy directly from the station's power grid. When necessary, we become whatever we need to become. Dr. Zenera's scientific curiosity finally overcame her caution. Dr. Chun, what evolutionary pressures could have created such comprehensive adaptive capabilities? What you're describing exceeds the boundaries of natural selection? Sarah's expression became distant, almost sad. Doctor, that's the question that leads to the real truth about humans. The truth we don't usually share because it tends to make other species uncomfortable. She walked to the chamber's viewing port, which showed the vast expanse of space beyond the station. Earth didn't just present random challenges that forced us to adapt. Earth was actively trying to eliminate us. What do you mean? Ambassador Kalin asked, her bio-armor registering increasing stress indicators from the human. I mean that Earth was testing us, Sarah replied quietly. Every catastrophe, every extinction event, every environmental change was a test to see if we were worthy of survival. Earth wasn't just our home world, it was our evolutionary examiner. She turned back to face the assembly. Most species evolved to fill ecological niches. Humans evolved to transcend ecology entirely. We became the species that could survive the death of worlds, that could adapt to any environment, that could become whatever evolution itself required. The chamber fell silent as the implications of the statement settled over the assembled representatives. Admiral Kesthor spoke slowly. Dr. Chun, are you suggesting that humans are not simply another evolved species, but rather a form of conscious evolution itself? I'm suggesting, Sarah replied, her voice carrying the weight of species-level truth, that humans are what happens when a planet decides to create life that can survive anything the universe can throw at it. We're not just adapted to our environment, we are adaptation itself. Captain Torres stepped forward. The question you asked at the beginning, why humans don't need armor, is based on a false assumption. You assumed we were like other species, just with different protective capabilities. But we're not, Engineer Webb added. Humans aren't a species that needs protection from the universe. We're the species that the universe created to protect itself. Sarah nodded. When you see humans working without armor, without protection, without technological enhancement, you're not seeing a vulnerable species making poor safety choices. You're seeing evolution's ultimate survival mechanism in action. She walked back to the center of the chamber. Every human is a living library of every adaptation life has ever developed. We carry the genetic memory of every species that ever lived on Earth, the survival strategies of every organism that faced extinction and found a way to continue. That's why human children learn so quickly, Torres continued. They're not just learning new information, they're accessing evolutionary knowledge that's been building for billions of years. That's why humans can adapt to any environment, Webb added. We're not developing new capabilities, we're activating capabilities that evolution spent eons perfecting. Dr. Zenera's energy field was pulsing rapidly with excitement. You're describing a species that represents the culmination of evolutionary development, a form of life that transcends normal biological limitations. We're describing humans, Sarah said, simply. And now you understand why we don't wear armor. We don't need protection from a universe because we are the universe's way of protecting life itself. The chamber fell into contemplative silence as the alien representatives processed this information. Finally, Admiral Kestor spoke. Dr. Chun, there is one more question that must be asked. If humans possess such extraordinary capabilities, what do you do for ordinary occupations? Sarah's laugh was genuine and warm, the first purely human sound she had made since the demonstration began. Admiral, that's perhaps the most important question of all. She looked around the table with an expression of amused affection. Captain Torres here? He's a security officer, but before he came to space, he was a kindergarten teacher. Engineer Webb? He maintains station systems, but his real passion is poetry. And me? She smiled with obvious fondness for her life's work. I'm a doctor, Admiral. I spent 12 years in medical school learning to heal people, to ease suffering, to preserve life. Every day, I use these incredible evolutionary capabilities to help patients feel better when they have a cold. The profound simplicity of this statement hit the assembled aliens like a physical force. Commander Zethkai's voice was barely above a whisper. You are saying that beings capable of transcending physical law choose to help others with minor ailments? We're saying that humans with godlike capabilities choose to be librarians, teachers, shopkeepers, artists, gardeners, and cooks, Captain Torres replied. We choose to write poetry, compose music, tell stories, and make each other laugh. Engineer Webb nodded. The same evolutionary heritage that lets us manipulate fundamental forces also makes us want to plant flowers, pet animals, and make sure everyone has enough to eat. Sarah's expression became infinitely gentle. The universe spent billions of years creating a species that could survive anything and overcome any challenge. And we use those capabilities to take care of each other, to create beauty, to explore for the joy of discovery, and to make sure no one has to face the darkness alone. She looked directly at each alien representative. That, Admiral, is why humans don't need armor. We're not trying to conquer the universe or dominate other species. We're trying to make sure everyone gets home safely. The silence that followed was profound and lasting. In that moment, every representative of every galactic civilization understood that they had encountered something unprecedented, a species of ultimate power that chose to use that power for ultimate compassion. And they realized that perhaps, in all the vast galaxy full of armored and protected species, the humans were the only ones who truly understood what it meant to be safe.